All right, my friends, let's have some fun with macro markets and quant. You got data in a GitHub repo. How do you get it into R and R Studio? Uh, First thing we need to do is figure out if we can get it in the regulator there to determine whether or not we can get it is if the repo is public or private. Uh, how would you know? What's the difference? Public repos anybody can get to. Private repos, you need to have the key. Uh, you could make it, in which case then you'll automatically have the key to that repo, or you could be a collaborator on a repo somebody else made. Um, Now, we're going to assume that these are public. If they are private, you can get that directly inside of R, and there's lots of ways that you can get it, but for now, we'll assume the repo is public. But how would you even know if it's public? Basically, what you're going to do is search around on GitHub or Google it and try to find the GitHub to that particular data set. If you could find it on your browser, it's public. Right, so that's the first thing, just to check out those Git pages. Next thing you need to do is find the proper URL, and then you need to download. So I'm going to make all this code, etc., available to you in just a little bit, but let me take you to a Git repo market observatory. This one's public. Now I'm logged in as myself, so I would have access to it anyway, but you could log in on your own Git account, uh, and you'll be able to see it. This is public. How do you know? Right there, it says public. Okay, so there's going to be lots of files. Which ones do I want? Let's look at the data. There's a panel over here with the file structure. There's all sorts of bells and whistles up at the top, and this is typically the way that you'll see them. Inside of the Market Observatory data folder, there's many different files. There's RData. That's the particular file format that's customized for operating inside of R. And then there's some CSV, the comma separated stuff that you probably know from dealing with Excel. I want to pull one of them. Let's just pick one. CSV. We'll talk about RData in a second. So let's just go to one. You click on it, and since it's like a flat file, like a text file, you can actually preview it directly inside of your browser, depending upon the size, of course. This one's rather small. How would you get that file? Couple ways. One way is that you can just click right here, download raw file. You'll download it. It'll give you that CSV. Now that'll be on your local computer. Then you can upload it directly inside of R. You know how to load the files into R. That's one. Kind of slow. Two, you can click on raw file and you get this big old mess. Now, if you zoom in, it's actually the data that I want. Everything is separated by these weird commas, and it's difficult for the human to read. CSV, comma, separated file. So this is what the computer could read. And you could load that directly into Excel. When you load it in and you import it, you just have to indicate that it's comma separated. Or you can paste that into an open Excel file and then separate it by the commas. You can do that. That's kind of slow as well. So the best thing to do is to actually load via the URL. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit for you. No. All right. So first thing we need to do, step one, is define the proper URL. Step two, read the data file. So we have to find the URL. How do you find the right URL? Well, I give you some guidance over here, but let me take you back to the site so you can see the way to do this. So we're going to, inside of that file, we can see it. First instinct is probably just to copy that URL. That's not going to do it for you. That's not a downloading URL. That's a viewing URL. You can try it. You can paste it and copy it in to the code that I gave you. If you go back to R, you can go over here and you can copy and paste that into the URL file. It's not going to give you the structure that you want. Few ways you can get to it. The way that I always do it, if I'm approaching it from this way, is go over here to raw. Don't left click, right click. When you right click in my browser, I'm using Edge, copy that link. All right, so here again, what I did was you go to raw, right click, copy that link. That would give you this URL. In fact, let me show you the two. If I just naively copied the URL from the browser, this is the top one. And then if you did the raw right click, it's this bottom one. They look almost the same, right? It's GitHub, it's Angular Mike, it's Market Observatory, but this is a blob on the top. That's in order for it to be static and for us to see. But the raw file is what I need to read in for the data. That's through the right click on the raw. So once again, if you want to see, click over to raw and right click, copy link. All right, next up. You're going to take that and you're going to copy it in. You're going to define the URL. I just called it URL file. You could call it Happy Face 5 URL, whatever you want. Now that you have that, you're going to define a data object and you're going to read in that CSV file of that URL file we just created. Click. So a couple things happened. First off, it created the URL file, which you got right there. And then you got the nice and neat URL file. I don't know why I'm talking like that. All right, so that's all the data structure that you need. Next up, what if you want to grab an RData file? Very similar, very similar. First step, you got to find the URL. So go over here. There's an RData file. So you can click on that. You could go to the top and you could copy that, but that's not going to be downloadable and viewable. Notice here, when you just click on it, you can't really see it. You can try to click the view raw, but that's not going to give you what you need. All I did was download it. So how do I find the URL for that downloading? Click raw, don't left click, right click raw, copy the link. Copy the link into here. So that's going to be very similar to before, except now it's referencing the R data file. Then a few ways you can do it. I'm going to create a temporary file. What this is going to do is temp file is going to grab that R data structure and temporarily load it in local memory. And then it's going to download that file based on the URL file that I created. Next up, we're going to load that in. We're going to load in that temp structure. And then we can print it out. So here's what we got. Right now, we only got data and URL file. Run that chunk. And it loaded in a bunch of stuff. It loaded in 3 things, but I only had 1 file. Why was that? Well, because there was a few objects inside of there. When you do this print ls, it's telling you what are all the objects that are inside of that R data file. It was the metadata, it was long, it was data wide. So we got the metadata, data long, and data wide. And these are the architectures of the National Income Project, both in wide and long form. All right, so what we did was find a public Git repo, able to download these CSV type files with that right click on raw, make sure you got that URL. We can do the same thing for our data. Hope that helps.